From the Journal of Doctor John Trotson, M.D., Captain of the 5th Northern Fusiliers, retired. In the year 1002 of Celestia's reign, I returned to Canterlot after sustaining an injury at the claws of a griffin, of such a serious degree that it required my removal from the front lines. I had fully recovered from my injuries, aside from a weakness in my front leg, which has sadly left me with a bit of pain and a limp. Having no home of my own, I had taken a room at the Stride Hotel where I lived comfortably, or as comfortably as one can in a military pension. For some weeks after I returned, I was rather listless and apathetic. I had no aim, no purpose, here in the calm, peaceful, quiet, boring city. The enforced visits to a counselor did nothing to put me in a better mood, with their claims of my suffering from post-traumatic stress, and my leg being a symptom of that. The medicine of the mind had never interested me, and so I was inclined to take what she said with a pinch of salt. One morning, however, I decided to take charge of my life again. I had woken with Celestia's dawn, and decided to find myself a less expensive residence. The faux luxury of the hotel and false hospitality of the staff was likely adding to my poor mood, and to get out of that place would be without a doubt a good start to my mental recovery. I may not be wholly convinced by the therapist's ramblings, but it was plainly obvious I was not the pony I once was. And so, I headed to the estate agents to see whether I could find anything at all I could rent within my budget. It seemed, however, that there was nothing in my admittedly rather limited price range that was much better than my student digs when I was back at university. I am not usually one to lose myself to nostalgic impulses, but that morning I gave in to one such feeling, finding myself strolling around the campus where I had first learnt my trade as a doctor. I don't know how it happened, maybe my therapist was more astute than I had thought, but I am eternally grateful that it did, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I had just stopped at a bench in the park grounds to catch my breath and rest my leg for a minute, when who should I see coming along the path but my old colleague Heartbeat? Heartbeat!
By Luna, is that you, John? Good gracious, it is! Ha! When did you get back, John? Last I heard you were taking pot shots at those blasted feather dusters.
Yes, well, one of the blighters got me back, I'm afraid. If it weren't for one of the griffins on our side flying me out of there, I don't know what would have happened. His eyes fell on my limp leg, and widened in realization. He proceeded to ask me all about my adventures and travels. Most ponies don't tend to leave the cities, let alone the country, and Heartbeat was never one to buck the trend. I told him all about my tour in the Griffin territories, my injury, and how I was shipped back home a short time ago. And now you see, I am somewhat lost, a stranger in a familiar land. The city has changed somewhat since I was last here, and my army pension is barely enough to rent even the smallest room. What I need is a flat which is comfortable, but at a reasonable price. But it looks like I might as well ask Luna for the moon while I'm about it.
An acquaintance has the reverse problem. He has found a comfortable enough set of rooms, but cannot afford it. Mentioned something about sharing them with some pony.
Why, that's perfect! Where is he?
You know, I'm not sure. He sometimes does work at St. Withers, which is where I know him from, but beyond that, I have no idea. I believe he's there now, as a matter of fact.
That would be fantastic! I hope it's not an imposition.
Not at all. I was heading back there anyway.
I didn't know you were still working at that old place, Heartbeat. As we descended the stairs to the basement level of St. Withers, the hospital where Heartbeat and I trained to become doctors all those years ago, I couldn't help but feel a little apprehensive over whatever my former colleague was planning, particularly with the stories he was telling me as we went. So, is he a student?
No, I don't believe so. At least not a medical one.
Then what does he do here in the hospital?
Well, that's the thing, John. There doesn't appear to be any pattern to his studies. At least that I can make out. One week, he'll be analyzing various mold species. The next, he takes copies of footprints from any member of the staff he can find, and starts examining those. The other day, he was in the morgue, beating a corpse with a cricket bat.
What in Celestia's name was he doing?
He was attempting to determine how long after death bruises would form. Don't look so worried, John. I assure you, as odd as he is, he's an absolute genius when it comes to his own branch. Whatever that may be.
My word, I haven't been down these halls in nearly 10 years. The place looks so abandoned and as dark as it is. Isn't that the teaching lab ahead?
Indeed. That's where he's generally to be found.
The last time I'd seen these rooms, they had been abandoned, shut down by reduced funding and the rise of dedicated research companies. Now there were jars, vials, flasks, burners, and condensers strewn around the room, many of which bubbled away merely to themselves, whilst more contained brightly colored fluids, the identity of which I could only guess. At one of the benches stood a tall, light grey earth pony, with a curly black mane and tail, with an almost wild look to them. Before him on the lab bench, there were two conical flasks, each containing a small volume of green fluid. He did not look up from his notes, either not realizing or not caring about my presence.
Ah, heartbeat, just in time. I believe I have perfected the solution. Take a look. A single drop of pony blood added to the mixture.
To my astonishment, the strange stallion sitting by the laboratory equipment pulled a pin from the lapel of his white coat and stabbed the frog of his hoof with the pin. He then allowed a single drop of blood to fall into the first flask.
Nothing's happening, old chap.
Precisely. Now, observe as I add a drop of changeling blood.
The pony then uncorked a small vial of what looked like normal pony blood. The bottle must have contained an inert atmosphere and been chilled, otherwise the blood would... But I digress. My medical instincts running away with me as they often do. He then used a small syringe to add a single drop to the second flask. The results were startling, to say the least. It's glowing! Phosphorescence?
Oh, hello. How very perceptive of you. Bioluminescence, actually. This is the first reliable, simple, inexpensive test ever created to differentiate ponies from changelings. Whether one can learn a spell or not. A little work is still needed. I believe that a unicorn could generate a false positive result. For a start.
Remarkable!
Congratulations. This is most excellent. John, could you get the lights, please? I wish to take a closer look at this.
No!
Unfortunately, I did not heed the warning until it was too late. As I hit the switch, the green solution began to glow more fiercely, the bubbling of the solution growing in intensity.
Switch them off! It's not...
A bright green flash engulfed the room, the same color as the flashes of magic the changelings had used during their attack on Canterlot. When the light faded and the spots had gone from my vision, I saw the mysterious pony with a pained look on his face. Whether from injury or annoyance, it was impossible to judge.
Photo stable.
My goodness, are you alright?
Yes, of course. The solution is still in the prototype phase. I suppose I still have my notes. And it is easily recreatable. Work still needs to be done on the formula anyway. Maybe a more electron-detonating Lengrand group.
Now then, my good fellow, I want to introduce you to my good friend John Trotson. He's...
Hold on. Don't tell me. Don't say another word. Hold it. Don't say another word.
What are you...
Shh. Now then. Judging from your unshaven fetlocks, your short mane and tail, your posture, it's obvious you're a member of the military. The tan line from your army jacket indicates the darker complexion of your furs from placement abroad rather than natural pigmentation. That leaves either the Dragonlands or the Griffin territories. Given your obvious limp in your front left leg, I would judge the latter more likely. Dragons don't tend to leave survivors. Despite your military nature, you're a friend of Heartbeat here, and you have a Catechus cutie mark. You seem fairly familiar with the hospital, judging from the fact that you were the one to switch on the lights, so you are most probably an army doctor who trained here with Heartbeat. I would remark, physician, heal thyself, but it's obvious that your limp is purely psychosomatic. I'm sure your therapist has told you as much. How'd I do?
To say I was taken aback would be an understatement on the order of remarking that Discord was a bit of a nuisance, or that Princess Celestia was somewhat fond of cake. That's incredible! Did you tell him any of that?
When? I only learned of your return to Canterlot an hour ago.
Then that's amazing!
Simple observation, I assure you, but I appreciate the compliment. I play the violin.
What?
I play the violin at odd hours, especially when I'm thinking. Not terribly, too, given my earth pony nature. Sometimes I don't talk for days on end. Would that bother you?
Why?
Oh, of course. I forget how slow the rest of you can be sometimes. Well, you see, I always think that one should share one's worst habits with a potential flatmate.
What makes you think I'm looking to share accommodations?
Come now, my good doctor. It's fairly obvious that you've been staying in a hotel for the last month? Yes, that seems about right. And military retirement funds have never been overly generous, so you likely need to live rather more economically than you currently are. Add to that Heartbeat's knowledge of my own desire to find a new residence, as well as him bringing you here to meet me, and the solution becomes obvious. I have a rather excellent apartment picked out on Baker Street, number 221B. We can arrange a visit this afternoon. The landlady owes me a favor, shall we say 2:30?
Wait a minute, I don't even know your name!
My name? A rather trivial matter in the grand scheme of things, I would think. But very well, my name is Sherlock Hooves.
I did warn you.
I thought over the matter carefully, and soon I realized I had little choice. Of two things I was sure, however. One, that I was in dire straits, financially speaking, and the opportunity to pay less for a more comfortable living space was more than a little appealing. Two, I was absolutely fascinated and curious to discover more about this mysterious stallion. How had he known so much about me, so quickly and without any information spoken? What were his interests, and why did he require such a diverse field of study? These questions could only be answered in one way, and so I found myself standing outside a modest collection of apartments in the middle of Baker Street at 2:15. I had little else to do, and it was no hardship to wait for a short time.
Ah, there you are. Trotson, wasn't it?
Mr. Hooves, yes, but just call me John.
Of course. Feel free to extend me the same courtesy. Shall we?
Nice spot. I imagine the rent must be quite high.
Oh, not at all. Mrs. Hudson, the landlady, has given me a special deal. She owes me a favor. A few years ago, her husband was sentenced to exile in Zerblecca.
And you prevented it?
By Celestia, no. I insured it.
A few moments later, it was opened by a unicorn mare of advancing years, who promptly greeted the extraordinary stallion with a hug.
Sherlock, how lovely to see you again. Are you here about the flat? And who's your friend? Oh, come in. Would you like a cup of tea?
No, thank you. I'm John Trotson. I was here to look at the flat with Sherlock.
Oh, I see. Well, let me show you it then. I'm Mrs. Hudson.
Mrs. Hudson led us up the stairs to the first floor. The apartment was nicely furnished, spacious, and, with the two of us, the rent was considerably less than I was currently paying. It was, however, somewhat of a mess. Lab equipment was strewn across the kitchen table, and piles of paper lay everywhere. This could be nice. This could be very nice indeed.
Precisely my thoughts. I like it a great deal.
Just as soon as we get it cleared up.
Well, I can probably tidy up a bit.
There's a skull on the mantelpiece.
A friend of mine. Well, I say friend.
And there's a second bedroom upstairs if you'll be needing two.
Well, of course we'll be needing two.
Oh, don't worry, dearie. There's all sorts round here. Mrs. Goldmane's next door's got married ones.
Oh, I mean, I mean, we're not.
What about these suicides then, Sherlock? I thought that'd be right up your street. Two, both the same.
3. And not all the same. No, there's something different this time.
At that moment, a light grey Pegasus flew up the stairs. Sherlock spun around to greet him before he even entered the room.
Where?
Trotwell. Duran Gardens.
What's different? You wouldn't have come to get me if there wasn't something different.
You know how they never leave a note? Well, this one did.
Really? Well. Who's on forensics?
Bunsen.
I don't work well with Bunsen.
Well, don't work with him then. Are you coming or what?
Yes, of course. I'll get a cab. I'll meet you there.
Right. Don't keep me waiting, Sherlock. I can't keep the forensics team at bay forever.
And with that, the pony turned and left the room. A few seconds later, the front door slammed shut behind him.
Brilliant! 3! It's a serial killer now. This is like Hearthwarming Eve. Right, Mrs. Hudson, I'll be back late. John, don't wait up.
Is that sort of thing usual?
Oh, no, dearie. Only a couple times a month. Would you like a cuppa? Just this once. I'm your landlady, not your housekeeper.
Oh, yes, please, Mrs. Hudson.
You're a doctor.
What? You back then? Yes, I am.
And in the war, too. Seen a lot of violence. Destruction. Death. Danger.
Yes.
Want to see some more?
Celestia, yes!
Milk and sugar, dear. Hello? Dear? Oh, the two of them deserve each other.
We made our way hurriedly to the junction with Marylebone Road, and quickly caught a passing taxi carriage. It was only then that the thought struck me that I still had no idea what all this was about. Look, Sherlock,
You want to know where we're going, and why, yes?
Well, yes. What's this about suicides? I thought there'd been no suicides in Canterlot in over 150 years. And why do the police want your help? I thought you were some sort of private detective, but the guard don't ask them for help.
I shall answer your second question first, if you don't mind. I am Equestria's first and only consulting detective. I lend assistance to the guard and anybody else with the funds to afford my expertise and skill set whenever conventional routes fail to provide a solution to their problems.
What sort of problems?
Burglaries, attacks, political scandals, that sort of thing. Nothing very interesting or out of the ordinary. Getting back to your first question, which involves a rather systematic issue, mainly, I think. The ponies in question are not, as a matter of fact, dead, but merely in an advanced coma, causing cure unknown to medical science. The city guard and the media call them suicides because, well, it appears self-inflicted. No trace of any pony else, all lying down comfortably in their own homes, and until now, no note. And of course, because they cannot be restored, to all intents and purposes, at least for the moment, these ponies are dead to the world. However, each is identical to the other. Serial suicides? Ha! I'd bet my prefrontal cortex that this is something far more sinister than they could possibly imagine.
So let me get this straight. You are some sort of crime-solving prodigy who can solve crimes that stump the police using what? Only the power of observation? And the authorities have called you in on what looks to be the most baffling case in the history of criminology? Well, excuse me, I can tell you're pretty observant familiar, but I find all that a little hard to believe.
No, John, you're right. That was widely inaccurate.
Okay, well, why don't you?
I'd say that it's only the most unusual cases of the last 50 years or so. And then only if you discount the attack by Discord. I am not a prodigy. A prodigy masters the work of others. I am a genius.
And with that, the cab pulled up alongside a house surrounded by yellow tape. Sherlock bounded out, tossed the driver a few bits, and headed off towards the waiting guard ponies. Me following shortly behind, still shaking my head in disbelief a little.
Ah, Sherlock. Glad you're here. Bit of a funny one, this one is.
Funny. That would make a marked change from the usual. I don't generally find much present at a crime scene to be humorous. Except for Bunsen, of course.
You know, I'm standing right here.
Yes, and doing a lovely job of it too. Don't try to walk and talk at the same time. You'll do yourself an injury. Lestrade, lead the way.
Hang on a tick, Sherlock. Who's your friend?
Ah, how remiss of me. Lestrade, John. John Lestrade. Maybe go in now.
Hi, I'm John Trotson. Sherlock asked me to come along because I'm a doctor.
Ah, I see. That makes sense. You've seen how well he gets along with Bunsen. Chief Inspector Lestrade, Scotland Yard, as well as guard captain of investigation for all of Canterlot. I'd better go check on him before he messes up my bloody crime scene. Again.
You've not known him long, have you? Sherlock, I mean.
Well, no. Only a few hours, actually. How did you know?
Because Sherlock Hooves doesn't have friends. If you're hanging around with him, well, you can't really know him very well. He's dangerous.
How so?
He's a really psychopath. He doesn't give a flying feather about any pony, and the only thing he cares about are these weird crimes.
But he helps. From what I understand, your inspector has called him in a number of times for assistance. That doesn't sound very psychopathic to me.
He does it for the thrill. He thinks it's fun. He's a genius, no doubt about that. But if he really wanted to help, he'd join the Guards Investigation Division and help all the time, not just the cases he wants to. And I'm worried that one day, solving crimes won't be enough. That we're going to be standing around a body and he'll be the one who put it there.
Excuse me, my friend is waiting for me.
There you are. Sherlock was waiting for you. The ambulance carriage is on its way. You have 10 minutes, Sherlock.
Look at this. Just look. This is fascinating. Tell me, Doctor, what do you see?
Unicorn, female, early 40s. Apart from that, well, it's as you said. She appears to be in an advanced coma.
And?
And what?
Is that all?
Well, from a medical perspective, that's all I can see, and I don't want to disturb any evidence in the room.
Yes, of course. I keep forgetting what a limited perspective the rest of you have.
Why? What can you see?
Look here, on the horn. Slight carbonization, flaking too. This unicorn has expelled a great deal of magic, and yet no signs of damage or marks on the floor or walls. No witnesses reported loud noise and slashing lights, the usual sort of thing associated with that sort of release of power. The body has remained here for what? A good few hours before the landlord found her? These facts do not tally, Lestrade. And this note, tell me, John, what does it mean to you?
Let me see. Minnote... Well, Sherlock...
It's obvious, isn't it? If we're ruling out suicide, then it seems quite clear that whatever happened to her, a minotaur is the cause. We have it here, in her own hoof writing.
Yes, thank you for your input, Bunsen. Really, a minotaur? Is this really the best Scotland Yard has to offer, Inspector? I see no smashed doors, no scratches on these too low of ceilings, and again, I'm sure a minotaur in the suburbs of Canterlot would cause rather more local gossip than we appear to have heard. So then, Dr. Trotson, you were about to say?
Well, I remember from back at university there was another magical college, the Arcane Academy, not too far away, in the town of Minot in Dakota. Apparently they call it the Magic City.
Excellent! Just what I was thinking. Yes, this is important, I'm sure. And, well, I may have spoken too harshly about Bunsen. I mean, he did pick up on something just then, even if he didn't realize it. I suppose a stopped clock is still right twice a day. But he mentioned the writing on the floor was hoof-written. Why would a unicorn, a proficient one at that, if we were to conclude that she attended this academy, write a single word in her own hoof-writing, when she would be perfectly capable of using her magic?
Well, this is all very interesting, Sherlock, but none of this proves that it wasn't self-inflicted. At best, it's circumstantial. We've got no leads on this attacker you seem to be building towards, let alone proof that he even exists.
Come on, Lestrade, do you not see? What is the rule of serial attackers? They're careful, they're clean, and you can't catch them.
Until they make a mistake. Yes, Sherlock, I know all this. What's your...
My point, Inspector, is that we have our mistake. Look, the attacker, whoever they were, has left this.
A ring?
Not exactly. Look a bit closer. This is no ordinary band. Look, small speckling of crystals across the surface and here, small sigils carved into it. Trotson, what do you make of this?
I recall reading a paper on such a device some years ago, from the Arcane Academy as it happens. It was hypothesized to make magic transfer much easier so that unicorns could cast spells far more efficiently. I never knew it made it to the prototype stage.
And there we have it, Lestrade. The key to this case. If you examine the other victims, I imagine that you'll see the same damage on the horn and the slight wear in the base indicative of the use of one of these devices, and that each shares a past in Minot. I think along with our attacker as well. Come along, Dr. Trotson. The paramedics are here and we have an investigation to carry out.
Oi, hang about! Where in Tartarus are we supposed to go from here?
Do as I have said, Lestrade, and it should become clear. The doctor and I shall take care of the rest, I assure you. Now, time is of the essence. I bid you good day.
Right, so... where do we go from here?
Come now, Trotson. Think. What is our biggest lead?
Well, it must be these rings, but how would we follow up on that? I must confess, I remember very little else about them. I doubt I could even find that paper again, certainly not in time to prevent another attack.
Then we must consult somebody with rather more experience in such matters. Taxi!
Where to?
To Celestia School for Gifted Unicorns.
Thank you. Here you are. No, keep the change. So, did you have any pony in mind particularly?
John, I am no expert on the internal structure of wizarding universities. I would know the first place to locate some pony here with a specialty in object magic.
Well, then I suggest you allow me to lead the way. I may not have come here, but I did spend 5 years at my own college, and I believe I can navigate a campus as well as the next pony.
Well then, lead on, good doctor. 2 hours.
It's a very large campus. Anyway, I know where we are now. Let's just go in.
Yes, fine.
Can I help you?
Yes, thank you. Is this the artifact research facility?
Yes, it is.
Excellent. We would like to speak to the head of the department, please.
Professor Denane? Of course, his office is on the 3rd floor. The stairs are just over there.
Thank you.
Have a nice day!
You as well. Thank you. That was rude. Never mind. So you think the artifact researchers can help with this device?
Who better? It bears the hallmarks of this area of expertise. Not fully understood, incredibly powerful, not generally known to the public, and very, very dangerous in the wrong hooves. Ah, this appears to be the place.
Yes, just coming. Good afternoon. What can I do for you?
Good afternoon. My name is Sherlock Hooves, and this is my colleague, Dr. Trotson. We'd like to borrow your expertise.
Of course, of course. Come in, come in. I've just put the kettle on. Tea?
Yes, please.
Any sugar?
2, thank you.
Not for me, thank you.
Sit down, please. Sorry, I'm afraid I don't have any biscuits. Now, what was it that you wanted to ask me?
What do you know about magical enhancement?
Artifacts to increase thaumaturgic power? Well, it's an interesting idea, certainly, and one I've heard before, but nothing has really come of it. Theoretical work, really. I doubt they'd actually work. Some colleagues of mine once, but it didn't work out too well.
How might one construct something of the type? Theoretically, of course.
Well, it would have to contain copper, of course, exceptionally good magical conductor, and it would have to have been worn close to the horn. But one would need such a large mass of copper it would pin one's head to the floor. Impractical would be an understatement.
But what if a different conductor was used?
Such as? The only metals that exceed copper for such purposes are either incredibly rare and expensive, or independently thaumaturgically active, and one would be rather loath to use the latter.
Why?
Imagine attaching a lightning rod to one's horn and running around in an electrical storm. The amount of extra power one would receive is great, but there are other consequences to consider.
But have you considered, Professor, the use of certain crystals as conductors, embedded into a copper device such as, say, a ring?
What did you say?
A ring, in fact, very much like your own.
What are you talking about? I'm not wearing a ring.
Not at the moment, no, but I can see the indentation of your horn where one would sit, and then there's the matter of that photograph behind you.
My goodness, is that...
Yes, John, the professor here and the 4 others, all wearing the same rings, and next to him is...
the pony from earlier, the victim of the attack.
Attack? What? What are you talking about?
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, Professor, but your associates in this photograph have all been the victims of a series of attacks, and the only connection appears to be these rings, and you. So tell me, what happened in Minot all those years ago?
Well, you seem to know most of the story anyway. It all started back when I was a lecturer at the Arcane Academy, almost 20 years ago. My research assistants and I were investigating how a pony could better channel their intrinsic magic. We began our research with unicorns, of course, but we hoped we could apply our findings to all of ponykind. Pegasi and Earth ponies, harnessing their own magic. It would have changed the world. Imagine a single pony growing an entire field of crops single-hoofedly, or breaking up dangerous weather before it could do any damage. It would be the beginning of a utopia. But there was one among us who did not share such ideals. There were 3 graduate students assisting me, all fine magic users, and I had known them for quite some time. But there was one other, an undergraduate student, Fleeting Spark. He requested to assist in my project over the holidays. Said he wanted to get experience in research. Didn't even want paying. He seemed keen, and university budgets are never quite what you want them to be, so I thought, why not? He turned out to be rather useless as an assistant. I found out later that he was barely managing to avoid being kicked out. He had less power than his peers, but he could have made up for that if he had only applied himself. But he did the bare minimum, just enough to pass exams. I wondered then why he'd decided to join the project. I thought he was changing his ways.
But he betrayed you.
Yes. The very day our prototype rings were complete, he stole one. Thought he could use it to steal the magic from others. Foolish. After he had attacked one of my grad students, the guard arrested him. If it had been possible, he might even have killed her. We all went our separate ways after that. It was years before I was allowed to teach again, and I had to leave my old university to do so. The Arch-Chancellor here was very generous to give me a research position. Many wouldn't have done so.
If the project was shut down, Professor, why do you still have your ring?
Oh, a memento. A keepsake. There were good times as well as bad.
Professor, you say that these devices cannot be used to steal another pony's magic?
No. Magic is more than simple energy. There is far too great an affinity between a pony and their magic for that to occur. It is tied to a pony in ways we don't fully understand.
But what if the victim were in possession of a device that allowed the magic to be channeled more easily? What if the victim was also wearing one of these rings?
Well, I suppose hypothetically... Wait, we are talking theoretically, aren't we?
Professor, have you heard about these serial suicides in the paper?
Yes, of course, but... You don't mean...
I'm afraid so. Your former assistants are the victims, and we think that you are the next target.
What? But that's impossible. He was imprisoned. How did he escape? How did he find them?
My dear Professor, one can do almost anything with powerful enough friends.
He's lifting up all of my furniture with his magic. That can't be, unless...
Unless I drained our former colleagues of all their magic. That's correct. Sadly, it seems I will have to get rid of your unwelcome company now that they know too much. I so wanted to keep this from being messy.
Fleeting, you don't have to do this. We weren't to blame for your imprisonment.
You say that, but if you and the others had simply let me prove that total magical transference was possible, the god would never have caught wind of it.
Get down!
Sweet Celestia Fleeting, what did you want us to do? Let you potentially kill one of my students?
Would have worked. I've already proven it can work. Your friends aren't dead, merely indisposed. I could transfer it all back if I wanted.
Then why don't you?
What? And give up this power?
John, while he's distracted, I want you to...
With the magic of all the unicorns I've transferred, I could not only lift all the furniture in here, but crush this entire room.
Right.
I won't, though. Oh no. First, I need to complete what I've been waiting for all this time. Right, Domain? I have a ring for you that I know will just knock you out.
Speaking of knockouts, yeah!
Oh.
Good show, Doctor. I knew that guard training of yours would prove useful. Now, move over. I need to search his saddlebag.
Sure thing, but how did you know to hit the ring he was wearing in the center crystal?
The ring we found at the last crime scene was speckled in crystals and sigils that extracted the magic from the victims. If Fleeting Spark was using the rings to steal unicorn magic, it would make sense that the ring he would wear would serve a different function. If he was using the same kind of rings as his victims, then the first victim would have easily defended or at least stopped himself from being overpowered and have his magic stolen. When I saw that his ring had a central crystal with sigils centering around it, I realized that this ring must have been created as a focal point for the magic to go when extracted, serving as sort of a one-way valve so the magic power only had one way to go, making his victim unable to do the same as what was being done to him, and thus much more difficult to stop him from being overpowered. So, when you smash the central crystal and destroy the focal point, causing any residue magic left inside from the last transfer to explosively release, more than enough to knock out a unicorn as magically sensitive as one who has stolen that from others.
That's incredible. Never in all of my years would I have thought to create such a thing. Mostly for the sheer danger it presents. You certainly know a lot about magic for an earth pony, Mr. Hooves.
No, just call me Sherlock. Mr. is so... normal. Anyway, yes, I do know a lot about the ever-present study of the magic arts. I must, for the sake of my investigations. Ah, here it is.
What is it?
It appears to be another ring.
Correct, but not just any ring. I figured he wouldn't have just one ring for magical collection, in case one was broken or lost, as careful and systematic as he is, and I was correct. No, if we were to place the extraction ring on him, and had a trustworthy unicorn to wear the collection ring, we can steal back the magic from Fleeting Spark and repeat the process in smaller increments to the other victims, until they had enough of their magical power to be restored.
Oh, I don't think I'm that good with magic to take that much energy at once.
I wasn't referring to you, Doctor. More to the professor, who specializes in magical artifacts and helped in the creation of these rings.
Oh! Well, yes, of course. How silly of me.
Well, I can certainly try. Even though I am the most experienced using these things still conscious, I've never taken in the magical energy of one pony, much less. More so, this will be a learning experience for all involved.
Duly noted, but we might to hurry this up. If he gets up again, he'll probably won't fall for the same trick twice, and will be reasonably angry. We took him out with just a kick and proceeded to magically obliterate us.
So yeah, no pressure.
Well, yes, you're right. Alright, let's do this. Ah! I did it. Goodness, I've never felt such a surge before. Almost liberating. Empowering.
Focus, Professor. We need you to transfer that energy back to the other victims to wake them. How's your horn? Any swelling around the base? Look into this light. I want to see if your pupils dilate.
I know you're a medic, Doctor, but please, we haven't the time for a full body examination. He'll be fine. Now, let us bring our energy hog back to the authorities and return your colleagues back to normal.
Alright, my boys have informed me that the magical transfer was a success, and according to the doctors, they should return to their full strength in no time.
Oh, that's great news, right, Sherlock?
Indeed, John. I take it Fleeting Spark is awoken and is in your capable hooves.
Yes, he is in custody. Sally is taking him to the paddy wagon now. We've retrieved statements from the victims after presenting him to them, and they all say it's him. He'll be put away where we will be sure that he won't be able to escape this time. It turns out the reason no one knew he had escaped was due to an illusion spell inside his cell to make it look like he was still there and doing things. Pretty advanced magic to be pulling something off like that. Makes me wonder who's this friend of his that busted him out.
As do I, Captain. If I may, would you mind me conducting a little interrogation of my own before you haul him away? I'm sure to share whatever I find out. This time.
Fine. But don't do anything screwy with his mind or something. I would like to interrogate him without him breaking down in an extinctional crisis.
I assure you, the mental breakdowns of criminals after my meeting with them is not in any way entirely of any fault of my own.
Ha! Yeah, just mostly your fault.
Ah, Sally. Still sleeping in your uniform, I see.
What are you talking about? My uniform doesn't look slept in, you nutcase.
Really? That sleeping pill packet hiding in your uniform pocket and the jewel stain on your collar suggests otherwise. Now, with permission from your captain, I would very much like to speak with the suspect.
Fine, but hurry up so I can take him to the station. Creep.
Splendid. Now, Fleeting Spark, mind telling me about this little supporter you have contriving elaborate magical breakouts for you? I take it the perpetrator's real motive was nothing to do with your revenge scheme, correct? More than likely wanted to see the full extent of the ring's power. You gave that pony your ring designs, did you not? Why else would any pony bother breaking you out of prison?
Had I known I stumbled into the great detective himself, Sherlock Hooves, I would have taken you out on the spot. She warned me about you. She's quite the fan, actually. Told me you were smarter than you looked. Though not as smart as her, of course. You might have caught me, but she still has all of you figured out.
Well, tell my fan I don't appreciate her work. Now, you still haven't told me who she is.
Psh! I'll be sure to tell her. Still like I'd actually tell you anything about...
Where'd that come from? Everybody stay low! I want an immediate...
Don't bother. Our shooter's already gone. I calculated the angled trajectory of this projectile and was able to deduce this location. However, by that time, whoever it was had blinked and teleported, leaving me only a vision of a bright light disappearing. More higher-level magic. And the victim, here... Are any of you seeing this?
Sherlock?
The amount of preparation required for this is incredible. There was a shot, but no actual projectile used. Look, this is a puncture wound that went deep into him, with no sound of any kind of ignition for the shooting device. There's no projectile inside the stallion. What the assassin used must have been some kind of air rifle capable of firing a concentrated bullet of air, making it impossible to do ballistics because there's nothing to do ballistics on. Whoever this pony is, she most certainly has my attention now.
Save it for another time. Sally, get the cleanup boys down here. Sweet merciful Celestia. And Sherlock.
Lestrade, don't you see that we are dealing with something...
Something that you yourself said we have no possible way of hunting down at the moment. If another case comes up, I'll let you two know. Now go home, get some sleep, or something.
Very well, but you were to inform me immediately if and when there are any new leads. You should have the capacity to do at least that much. Trotson, let's go home.
Gladly. All this excitement today will ruin my leg.
Really? Considering your leg hasn't shaken in pain or other symptoms during today's more stressful moments, I would have figured you admitted it to be psychosomatic by now. When the shot went off, your leg didn't so much as spasm. You looked more like you were about ready to pounce.
Well, I have, let's just go home. Maybe have a cup of tea with Mrs. Hertzen or something.
Yes, you're right. We must keep you off of that bum leg of yours.
Sally.
Yes, Captain?
When we begin an investigation over this poor soul, I want to make sure 2 ponies are allowed to go to the crime scene investigation.
And let me guess, it's those 2 hooligans, am I right?
I get the feeling we'll need the assistance of Sherlock Hooves and Doctor Trotson in the very near future.
Well, not quite how I expected my return to Canterlot working out.
Yes, best laid plans of mice and mares and all that. I do believe it's time we take care of these end credits.
Right, playing you, Sherlock Hooves, was, Sherlock.
They need to find him a different nickname. name is going to get confusing for those who aren't nearly as deductive as I am. Regardless, John Trotson was played by Jester DeRama, Mrs. Hudson by Hannah Kay, Bunsen was played by Shim, Lestrade was played by City, and Sally Shields was played by Starry Flame. Theme song orchestrated by Ordon Riff, Sherlock, Codemaster, and Dunder as director and assistant directors.
Dunder was also the cab driver, the fangirl was the secretary, Heartbeat was played by Overclock, Professor Domain was played by Captain Scruffy, and Fleeting Spark was played by Jenga.
Special thanks to Luna Umbridge for her original design of Sherlock Hooves, as well as to Squeakin' and the rest of the folks at Pony in a Box Productions for all of their support. We wouldn't be able to pursue this case without you. This has been a collaborative effort of Pony in a Box Productions and Not My Division.
Wait, there's 2 listed here that weren't in the episode. Wolfie and Overclock again are here, but it doesn't say what for.
That's mysterious. I wonder the reason. We'll have to investigate that further. Lastly, in appreciation to Hasbro, who owns the property of My Little Pony Friendship with Magic, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle of Sherlock Holmes. This has been a fan project, and all properties of characters belong to their intended rightful owners.
Whom without both this production would have been impossible. Thank you.
Well,
The job is done as you requested.
did anyone see you?
Not a chance. Those fools will find no evidence I was ever there.
Was the detective there?
Indeed, he was there. There's no way he'd ever trace back to us.
Oh, I'm not worried about that. I just want to be sure he was there to see the first move in our little game. My game.